I didn't want to cry today.
It's a girl.
It's just like such a hard topic. Hey everyone, and welcome to Community Table, a Beyond Type 1 discussion series where we have real, unfiltered, and deeply personal conversations about life with diabetes. Joining me today are two amazing guests. First up, we have Kylene Redmond. Kylene is the powerhouse behind Black Diabetic Girl and a fierce voice for change. Next up, we have Niel Greathouse. He's a filmmaker, content creator, and the mind behind The Beaties. Let's get into this week's Community Table. Kai, you were initially misdiagnosed with type 2 diabetes before finally getting the correct type 1 diagnosis. So how did that misdiagnosis impact you financially?
Ultimately, it led me to spending unnecessary money because I was spending money on meds that just weren't working. And with that correct diagnosis, I would have not spent that money on medication and doctor's visits and things like that, if they would have just diagnosed me correctly. So money just donated, basically.
Yeah, literally. I mean, how long was it before you received the right diagnosis?
Almost a year.
Wow.
So think
So
about
you
all
were
those
doctor's
copays.
appointments. Yep.
Yep. All those good copays and, money spent on metformin and just other pill form meds that weren't working.
And Niel, I know your diabetes diagnosis changed your entire career path. Can you walk us through how did that shape your personal and professional, financial outlook?
Oh gosh. Yeah, buckle up. It was a lot, The thing that I talk about a lot is, when I got diagnosed with type 1, I was in flight training. I was in the Air Force. What I don't talk about is how long that training and preparation was. So it's 4 years, 7 months, 11 days of flight training and getting ready and prepping for that moment. And then all of a sudden that diagnosis hits and it drastically changes your career path, but it's so immediate. It's just like I had plans, right? I had there's all this additional schooling, there's all this additional training. You're building out what you think life is going to look like, and it just instantly changed all of that. Your livelihood is done, right? I'm in the middle of all of this training, and then you're medically discharged, and you kind of go back home, and you're like, okay, I guess we're back at square one. Yeah, it's kind of lonely, to be totally honest with you. You're trying to process all of that. And yes, there's a financial side to it. There's an emotional side to it. And it's kind of frustrating. That's when the shift changed to more of the storytelling, the marketing, the film, all of that stuff to help connect with people who really just felt alone and confused, just like I did.
I'm incredibly impressed with how you've been able to, shift from full-blown active service to now you're serving now our community. So we do appreciate you and your voice. I have a question for both of you. What has been the most shocking or unexpected cost related to diabetes that you've had to experience so far?
Hands down for me, insulin. Hands down.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's not even a close second.
Hands down.
There's another hidden cost that I didn't think about until we started getting ready for this talk, and it's time. It's not a financial burden, but the amount of time that we spend. How can you quantify that, right? What is your time worth? What is your life worth? But Kai and I both know our mental headspace is thinking about this. I've thought about my blood sugar twice since we're on here already. So, yeah, you know.
I made sure, and it's the preparation in general, right? Like you said, in the car on my way home in traffic, I'm eating gummy bears because I don't want to drop while I'm doing this, right? So, I'm like, I'd rather be a little high than it trend down because, then how can you really do this panel with your blood sugar dropping? You're then you can't think straight. You're all over the place. But that is one, like you said, just the time, right? People don't realize all that it really takes to live with diabetes.
In that same note, how do you both personally budget for costs that come with diabetes?
I don't know that I've mastered a solid budget, right? Because something is always unexpected. I can budget for certain things, but when a price changes on things, or you get sick and you have to get something else, or things change, right? Insulin prescriptions can change. So it's kind of hard, right? Like, I mean, it's just, for me personally, it's kind of hard.
100%. So when I was diagnosed, I was 17 years old, and at that point in time, I'm getting ready for college, don't have a real job, am not making real money. I think I was working at a restaurant as a server, or started as a host, so I was making like minimum wage. And then I had college costs on top of that, so I was having to pay for books and tuition. And so I'm like trying to figure out what's more important at this point in time. Do I want to pay for a couple textbooks or a parking pass, or am I going to go pay for my insulin and my doctor's appointments and things like that, right? So it's tough to budget, and I think budgeting will always vary depending on what phase of life you're in.
Every single penny counts, right? It's all got to go somewhere. Low blood sugar doesn't really care if you're on a pump, if you're on MDI, if you wear a CGM. Like, we all have to deal with a low blood sugar. It's like the one constant I can guarantee is going to happen no matter what. I mean, like, we're going to have some lows, right? Diabetes is going to diabetes. So we sat down and did a side-by-side cost analysis of what do I have them? I literally have them right here. What glucose tablets actually cost in treating a low blood sugar versus the alternative, which is, for me, is Skittles, it's Mike and Ike's, it's a juice box, it's fruit snacks, or something like that, right? And I started stacking it up. And so this thing, I don't know what it costs for you guys, but $3.59 for me. And two of these, for the most part, 2 to 3 will treat a low. But if I'm eating more quantity of fruit snacks or juice boxes or candy to treat the low, because it takes more of that to do it, we actually started saving money on all the extra stuff. Side by side, it's almost 2 to 1. I cut the cost down by half. Think about glucose tablets as medicine, and this is the cheapest medicine that I could find to treat a low. Now, I know that's not insulin, but we all, if we're having lows, we all have to treat those. It doesn't care what the brand name is, you still got to treat it. So that's my thought. Every penny counts.
It does. It definitely does. I like that. I might have to circle back to glucose.
I don't like them. Kai, I don't like them, but they help.
Maybe I'll circle back to glucose tabs, but I stock up on candy after Easter, after Halloween. Like, I am in the stores because they're discounted. They're discounted. So that is my time. Like, that's my tip. Now, once my candy stash is gone, I will circle around and see if I save money with the glucose tabs. But it's these things that we don't, that other people aren't thinking about, right? Like, they're buying candy before Halloween and we're buying candy after Halloween.
One thing that I will do every single time I go to the endo, they probably hate me. They see me coming a long way off. They're like, oh, here's this guy again. This guy. Well, here's what I do is I ask for samples of everything. If it's not nailed down in that endocrinology office, I'm taking one home with me. So I don't leave the doctor's office without asking for test strips or a meter or lancets or a CGM. Now, they're not going to give me insulin. I've tried. Like, I'm just so you know, I'm not just, I've tried. I'm like, look over there. What's that? I'm over here trying to grab insulin. But it's like, in all seriousness, they have so many extras that can get you through sometimes. That can make the difference between, I'm not going to get the next shipment for a while because I can't afford it. So instead of not having anything, I would go for the free samples all day long, man. Just treat it like Costco or Walmart on a Saturday morning at Sam's Club, and they got samples out forever. Just go get as many as you can.
Rationing supplies is the reality for many people in our community, and not even just insulin, just any supplies in general. And I feel like we just need to talk about it today. So have you or anybody that you've known had to ration any type of diabetes supplies?
Oh, I'm doing it right now. I'm literally doing it right now. Every time I go on a pump break, I am saving my pump supplies because for whatever reason. And right now, um, it's cheaper for me to wear my CGM and be MDI. At first, I just was doing it for a regular pump break, but then I realized how much money I'm kind of saving, not spending my money on pump supplies, and I'm just gonna roll with MDI, and I'm just gonna save those for an emergency of when, like, I'm burnt out of MDI and I need to go back on my pump. But yeah, it is real.
It's one of the most stressful things ever, which only raises your blood sugar more. Being stressed is not like it's helping at all. Yeah. I actually asked my wife this to double check. I've gotten down to my last dose of insulin 4 times over the years of having this. The most recent was in December of last year, and it's just because the shipments just hadn't gone out. I couldn't get a hold of anybody. They weren't shipping it. I'm like, listen, as I'm getting closer in this last vial, I'm like, listen, I'm getting close. I probably got about 5 days left. I'm calling them the next day. I'm about 4 days. I got down. I'm like, listen, this is it. Like, this is, and you want to talk about nervous and sweaty, and it's all you're thinking about. You're like, all right, so I'm just not going to eat as much. I've done it, but in that case, in that situation, I actually had to go borrow, like, somebody else in the community that I mentioned it to, and they're like, listen, please, that ever happens, you come get it. And to anybody who has ever had to do it, if it's I don't have this CGM, or I need this pump part, or I'm running out of insulin, or I need pen needles, I'm just telling you, you post that on social media and watch this community jump in. Like, you cannot believe, you'll barely hit post and somebody will jump in and say they'll help. A friend of mine, one of my absolute all-time best friends, his dad has type 1, and we didn't know he was rationing insulin for a long time. And when we figured it out, it was because he was skipping lunch at the office at work, and he would go behind the office building and run laps to try and get his blood sugar to lower. And when we found out, I was like, oh, like, sir, please don't ever, like, I got you. I don't care. We will find you something.
Yeah, last year, well, at the end of last year, I lost one of my friends who was literally maybe like the first or second person that I ever met after I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And he reached out to me a couple times and asked if I could help him with insulin. And so I gave him some vials of insulin. And then I didn't hear from him again. And I literally beat myself up because I never followed up and like said, hey, like, how are you doing? Do you need anything? And he just recently passed away because he couldn't afford his insulin. And I felt like it was, it wasn't my fault. Obviously, there's a bigger picture at play. But it's just really hard when you see those people that are truly struggling and there's nothing that you can do per se to like help them when they don't feel comfortable speaking up and using their voice.
Of course, I'm so sorry to hear about your friend, and it's those stories that make us do what we do, right? Because we don't want to see anyone else lose their life because they're struggling to afford insulin, right? Like, we donate insulin to so many people because we don't want to see anyone else end up in that situation.
This community is probably the most responsive tight-knit group of people I've ever been around. Yeah, they're incredible.
Now I have one last question for both of you. If someone who is newly diagnosed with diabetes is overwhelmed by the financial aspect, what is one piece of advice that you would give to them?
When you have type 1 or somebody in your family has type 1, right? If you're a caregiver, one of your kids has type 1, it changes the lens in how you look at a lot of things in the world. It changes your view of what job you take because it's based off of what kind of health insurance do they have. I would actually do a job I don't like if they have better health insurance. We start looking at what our expenses are going to be on. You weigh things differently. You're like, is this a want or is this a need in light of the fact that I have this? You have to understand that you're not the only one whose view has changed and that there are like 1.8 million people in the US alone whose view has also changed. One of the things that you may be tempted to do is Google some of these things. I would actually recommend jumping into the type 1 diabetes community instead of just Googling it, because those are very different answers. Type 1 diabetes community on social media, in some of these groups and things like that, they are not just helpful, but they're empathetic. They understand. And sometimes, at least for me, the thing that I actually need is a place where I could vent a little bit and be frustrated and somebody to just nod their head and say, yeah, I get it. And I'm right in there with you. And maybe we can't fix all this, but I'm just not going to leave you in that spot. We'll stick with you through it. That's the best antidote to some of the financial stress, because that pressure's out there, right? We're going to have to still do the homework. You're going to have to still go out there and find the stuff and the supplies and all of that. But just knowing that you're not alone in the process, I think is one of the most helpful things.
What I would tell someone is to, one, don't be afraid to hold a conversation. Join the diabetes space, but understand that diabetes is not one size fits all, and your management is your management alone and only yours, right? And so just because some people say you must have a pump, you must have a CGM, you shouldn't be MDI, right? Like that's their preference. Don't take that on. Do what works best for you, management wise, and it could be financially as well, right? Like you have to figure that out. You can talk to people, you can talk to a vast majority of people, but understand that everyone is coming with their diabetes advice from their own personal perspective, and you have to tailor what works for you from this advice. And don't be afraid to say, okay, well, I can't afford a pump, but maybe I can afford a CGM and I'll just have to be MDI. Maybe I can't afford all of the snacks and the things that other people want. I'll use a glucose tab. Or you might say, you know what, I don't want to use glucose tabs. I'm only going to use apple juice or orange juice or whatever works for you. And so you have to take it all with a grain of salt and move forward that way. But also just, as I always tell people, don't be afraid to ask questions to people.
This has been Community Table. Huge thank you to our guests, Niel and Kylene, for joining us and sharing today. And of course, thank you to Eli Lilly and Dexcom for making this episode possible. If you or somebody that you know is struggling to afford insulin, please visit getinsulin.org to explore options. We'll leave a link in the description below with additional resources. If you enjoyed this conversation, please be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for joining us. We will catch you next time.